with Father's Day coming up, I wanted to take time to recognize a lot of fathers in our community. These gentlemen are known as Pop, Dad. I call them mentors. And with me today, I'm excited to recognize the following gentlemen: TYRON Jones, George Krapansky, Ted Blunt, Joel Coppage, Chris Simon. How are you guys? Happy Father's Day.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for being here. I appreciate it. So listen, I'm gonna dive right into this, right? With Father's Day being here, I'm not a dad. My child's on 4 legs. Think back, how did you feel when you first heard the words from your wife, your girlfriend at the time, honey, we're having a child? What was that feeling like when you first heard those words?
I couldn't believe it.
Yeah? Yeah. What was that initial feeling like? Like, how did each of you feel in that moment?
And that's complete shock.
And was that
complete
the
shock amongst us
response?
all. I mean, at the end of the day, you look at it and you say, God bless us, you know, to be able to have a child.
Yeah.
But at the end of, and at the same time, you're like thinking, my Lord, how are we going to make this happen?
Well, okay.
Am I ready for this?
Yeah, these are honest responses.
No,
These
really.
are honest responses.
I actually thought when my wife did tell me that, the first thing I thought about was, how am I going to do this? Second thing I thought about was my own dad. It was, he brought me to where I am right now for this moment. And I thought about her dad. Those are the 2 key people that I looked at as father figures growing up, was my father and my father-in-law. And I said, if I can be a little bit of him and a little bit of him, I'll be a good dad. So that's what I thought about.
How about you, Honorable?
For me, it was my freshman year in college, and we were playing Johnson C. Smith University. And after the game, I had gotten a call from my wife saying, "You're now a dad." And that was when Lisa was born. And so that was in February of 1962, and we lost the game.
No pressure.
Now, each of you have multiple kids, right? Right? Is that safe to say? Oh, you guys have multiple kids. What after the children are born and you know you're now a father of a household? Like, doesn't that feel like a lot of pressure? Like, how did you get to this thing called a rhythm of fatherhood? Like, how did you get there?
Well, for me, I was fortunate. I was in college, and my wife was staying with her parents during that time when I was in school. So I did not really have the true responsibility of being there her first 2 or 3 years because I was always away at school. And I was fortunate enough to have a family that was willing to stay there with us and to nurture us during those first 2 to 3 years. Because A, I didn't have any money, and B, I didn't have any job. So I had to totally depend upon my family for resiliency and to make sure that we could stay together.
I think for me, I was so tired that I couldn't really think of the big picture. I just was trying to get through the day. Our first child didn't sleep very well, and it was just so much work. I'd never been that tired. I mean, you just can't, the things you take for granted, sleeping in or kind of doing things with your friends or even your wife, those are gone. And you realize that you're really at the mercy of this child. And so I think early on I didn't really have a lot of time to think about the big picture, the ramifications of what was going on. I was just trying to survive. Yeah. But it worked out, and you just get through it. I think that's one of the things you realize by being a parent and a father is that a lot of times you just have to get through things for your kids. You got to get through them, and by getting through them, you'll teach your kids how to get through their own life. So,
How about you, George?
Well, I have 3 kids, and with each one of them, I found while there were certainly going to be some challenges ahead, my heart just continued to grow. And there was always a way to do it.
Yeah. Well, you know, I'm going to take a moment of personal privilege because I really want to say to each of you that this is a real privilege because each of you have played a very integral part in my life. While you all know about my childhood growing up, my grandparents raised me. Didn't have my grandfather, or my father, I should say, didn't have my father around, but my grandfather, David Webb, he took me in with his wife, my grandmother, Margaret, And each of you, as I was growing up, getting to learn and meet each of you, you guys have played a part. And, you know, I've learned something new each time about just manhood alone. Like, what would you say to young fathers right now that are nervous when they see that they're about to have a kid on the way? What do you wish you had learned that you know now that you could tell yourself then?
You know, when I was, as I was raising my children, and I have 4, and I'm in a blended family, so I'm raising 2, and then I have 2, and so it is an opportunity really to be involved in a lot of people's lives. But I told myself I would not get married or have children until I was 30, because you don't really know yourself until you get to that point in time. I mean, you go through life's ups and downs in your 20s, and you're really trying to figure out who you are. And I tell my kids, don't have kids until you're 30. Get to know who you are as a man. Now, sometimes that's not going to happen. So you've got to connect with somebody within your circle of influence to be able to help you through. But you've got to know you in order for you to help give something to somebody else. And those are children, those are individuals who are looking for something from you.
I know for me, it was a situation where, you know, I grew up in a neighborhood where not everybody always had a father that they could look to. And what I remember most is time goes by fast. And I would tell young people today is don't run from the moment, stay in the moment. It is so important, because you're gonna look up one day and that kid's gonna be 10, 12, 15 years old, and hopefully you had that time. I always say you have to invest. You have to invest the time right now while they're really young, and that'll pay huge dividends when they get older. And you'll see that. You know, it'll be the little things that they just run to your arms when they're a teenager. I'm like, wow, she's still running to my arms. That's great, you know. So I spent a lot of time just focusing on keeping it in the moment. Even when I started, when my daughter got older and my son got older, and they both were 2 different kids. They came out of the same womb, 2 different distinct personalities. And I adapted. The way I taught my daughter and fathered her was totally different than the way I did my son. So I would tell young people, think about being in the moment. And even though you get tired, because we did, I know I got tired. My daughter was like, she did not sleep at all. I mean, you know, my son was perfect. She was just the opposite.
Right.
Ted knows. And this is fatherhood, real stuff. Ted fathered my daughter too.
Wow. Wow.
He did. I mean, she would have some issues, and he, you know, thanks to Ted, thanks to Mr. Blunt, Mr. Blunt, yeah. And he fathered me. I mean, he was hard on me when I was a basketball player and played for him on the All-Star team. You know, I still haven't forgotten that. But it was a lesson. It was a lesson. So fathers can be anybody, not just who's in the household. Anybody can be a father. Not everybody can be a dad.
Right.
And he was like a dad.
Right. So what did you learn, George?
You know, there's a lot of pressure to provide, to give your kids everything they want. And I guess the one thing I learned, it's not what you leave your kids, it's what you leave in your kids that counts.
You know, it's funny that you even say that. Two things that come to mind I'll never forget. Like I said, each of you have played a very big part in my life. I'll never forget my first job at Cross and Simon, working with Chris. I'll never forget, I was just intern doing some work, and I'll never forget, I was getting ready to leave, and we were doing some kind of deal, and I was walking out the office, and he's like, hey, you shook my hand, you look me dead in my eye when you shake my hand. I was like, what the heck does that mean? And it's just little stuff like that I was just like, oh, okay. And mind you, I'm fresh out of high school, little stuff like that. Or George sharing with me Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I was like, what is Maslow? I don't know this stuff. You know, or Ted, Jordan, you're a grown man. Stop wearing shorts on a campaign. Or, you know, I mean, it's the small stuff that I'm really appreciative from each of you guys. Like, have each of you had moments like that you value those small little lessons that you learned growing up?
You know, my first mentor obviously is my father, and he raised 8 children, and I was the only one from that 8 who went to college, and it was because of something he did and said to me in 9th grade, and I wanted to go out and hang out with everyone else in the street and so forth, and didn't want to play football, and he stopped. He says, yes, you are. You're going to play football, and he forced me to play football. Well, the reason why I bring that up is because if he didn't stop me, if he just allowed me to do whatever I wanted to do, I would not have realized that that was going to be that golden moment, that moment where I went and played football that year, did great, and ended up over the next 4 years, got a scholarship to play football at the University of Delaware. First one in my family. But it was that moment that he stepped in. And for us, it's that moment where we have to step in. We don't know when it's going to be in our children's lives, in your life, in anyone's life who comes and we're so blessed to be able to be a part of their lives. We don't know what that moment will be, but it's going to be for us just to give what was given to us so that it could help you maneuver through whatever obstacle you have to go through.
I got some great advice. Some of the best advice I remember was a book. It had nothing to do with kids. I got a dog, and it was a book about training a dog how to retrieve for hunting. And the preface for the book talked about how, the author said, when you see a dog jumping around, chasing everything and running around, chasing his tail and jumping on people, that's not a happy dog. That dog is confused and undisciplined, and it's not a happy dog. And dogs really want discipline. They really want to know how to do something. They really like to be disciplined, and they really like to perform, hard tasks for, the hunter. And to take it to kids, kids want to do whatever they want to do all the time. They're not necessarily happy. And you think you might make them happy if you give them all the freedom and all the things that they may want. But discipline and that ability to, control yourself in situations and apply yourself in the right circumstances to do tough, challenging tasks makes you happy. And suddenly it made sense why my dad was so tough on me. That, it was all the discipline he was imparting, and I was happier when I was disciplined. So that was a really important lesson that I didn't take from my father when he was doing it to me, but I picked it up in that.
It's funny, and you're spot on for sharing that, because in 2021, I was sharing what each of you have taught me. Joel and Tyrone, I don't know if they remember this, but me just getting ready to try and jump into a campaign running for office, right? Being a millennial in 2021, I would love to hear your opinion. My generation, we want things fast, because that's how we're getting things. We're able to access things real fast. But I'll never forget just getting ready to run for office. I'm just running with my mind and thoughts and wanting to do things. And both of them were like, I remember I sat down with them individually, like, slow down. Slow down. You don't have to move so fast. And with that being said, do you feel like my generation, I'll say, or just any kind of young men in general, what kind of advice when it comes to, in 2021, trying to move so fast? I know why I want things so fast, because I'm trying to seek opportunities, seize the moment, as you guys were sharing, but why slow down? Why do that?
Well, you and I had a lot of conversations.
Yeah.
Every generation probably I felt that way. I wanted everything to happen. I don't think it was just your generation. I think every generation, at least for me, I felt the exact same way that you did. But I was fortunate to have somebody to sit down with me and say, hey, listen, have a plan, think it through. And that was the advice I was trying to give to you, as well as others, my kids, other kids in the neighborhood I may have coached somewhere along the line, or from church or whatever, is just think through very carefully about what steps. I'm a very prayerful, spiritual person. I always say look to the higher power in terms of where they might be leading you in your path, and listen. Because a lot of times we don't listen or don't look for, and we use the eyes more than the ears. And if you allow yourself to be surrounded by these wonderful gentlemen that I'm sharing this panel with, to say, what can I learn and what can I listen to have that be a part of me to help set that course in that direction. That's what I will continue to tell you, as well as others, that that's an important thing, and we always want that now. That's not a bad thing, but how you do it, what you do and how you do.
How about you, George?
Yeah, I think that for me, I came along at a time when the community was what nurtured me, more so than just my immediate family. The community dealt with the recreation center, a recreation leader, dealt with the teacher, it dealt with the school principal, it dealt with the neighborhood gang leader. But the important thing was you can learn from everybody. And in fact, I shared this with you when you were running for office. The 4 key words: listen and don't lie. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Most people don't listen and most people lie. And if you can get people to understand that that's important. Also, I told my kids, you become what you see unless you see what you want to become. Mm-hmm. You know, we all have sight. We can see whatever we want to see, but very few of us have vision to know where we want to go. And that's the kind of message and information that I tried to pass on to my children and to their children. And then third, the word no. Learn how to say no to children. So often we're accustomed to trying to accommodate rather than to teach. When you accommodate, that means you're compromising. When you're teaching, you're not compromising. And youngsters learn from you. They pick up what you do and how you handle situations. And most of us cannot deal with conflict. And that's when young people come to you. But if you don't start communicating with them from grade 1 to grade 3, you're in deep trouble. Because after the 3rd grade, they no longer listen. And then you've got to involve them in the things that you do. I like going to the park. I take them to the park. You know, I like going to libraries. I take them to the libraries. I like going to the zoo. I take them to the zoo. So they have to be around you and be engaged with you. But understand there's a time when you speak and there's a time when you shut up. And in my house, when my kids said to me, Dad, we want to eat in the dining room, I told them it took me 33 years to get to eat in the dining room. You know, I started from the basement steps up to the steps on the basement, to the top of the steps, to the kitchen, to eventually to eat in the dining room. And that was when I had my own house. And so I said, there's a price you pay in life. You know, you have to gradually get it. But if you get it all at once, you're not going to know how to handle it. What comes quick goes quick.
TYRON, any thoughts on that?
You know, I'm listening to the elders of the circle here, and people always say, that was then, this is now. Because the circles of influence on a lot of our kids right now is not just relegated to that small community. You've got the internet, you've got the cell phones, you've got all these things that are now influencing our kids. So now we've got to figure out how do we maneuver through that conversation that they may be getting from somebody else. And what they're getting from somebody else is not necessarily going to be for their well-being. So for me, my children, there are 3 things that I tell them. There's a formula, and I shared it with you. It's knowledge. K plus U equals W. Knowledge, you got to get as much knowledge as you possibly can. But once you get the knowledge, there's got to be understanding. And understanding doesn't come by you just basically thinking you're going to get it through osmosis. It's going to be either through experience or it's going to be through somebody else sharing it with you or giving you a deeper sense of understanding about that particular piece of knowledge that you've been getting, teacher, whomever. And then you got K plus U equals W. And W is what? Wisdom, because that's what we have up here. You have wisdom that has been gathered over years based on the knowledge and understanding that they've received. And now they're applying that knowledge and that understanding, they're applying it. That's being wise. I'm trying to teach my kids how to be wise to every circumstance or situation that may come up. So get the knowledge. If you don't understand it, let's figure it out. But then you've got to figure out how do you apply it when you get outside my home or when you're engaging other people or when you're even raising your own children. So for you, it was about that. It's about getting knowledge, understanding about what it is that you're about, and now apply it when you get ready to engage others.
I'm sorry, but the other point is engagement. We have to be engaged with not only our children, but their friends. We need to know who their friends are and not be afraid to ask. And we need to be visible in situations where they are, at school, in the playground, in the community. People need to know that that's your child. When something goes down, they're going to make sure that Dad's going to get a phone call. Because if you act up before you get home, I'm going to know about it. and you don't want me to be upset about anything.
That neighborhood thing
Wait a minute.
was real. I mean,
you're on memory lane right now.
my neighborhood was the same way as Ted's was. Now, if I could do something wrong down the street, and by the time I got home, that message was already there. Yeah. But it was a good thing to be able to have the whole village and neighborhood watching you and raising you at the same time. That is different from what it is today.
But gentlemen, we know that village does not exist in that form and fashion, and we've got to figure out how do we create it, whether it's virtually or whether it's some form and fashion. I think that's what we've learned from the pandemic, is that we can connect with people now virtually. You can do a Zoom, so I can get the whole family together, and we can all sit and talk about circumstances, situations. But before pandemic, we weren't doing that. So we've got to create, how do we create that village?
Yeah, because I'm gonna tell you right now, as individuals that I associate with in my age bracket, they also look up to a lot of you, and would love the opportunity to sit with you. But I've even heard folks my age feel either intimidated or not able to connect because it's like, if I don't want to come incorrect or feel like being told something I don't want to hear. But one thing I learned from George is just the level of respect, and I try to share that with my peers, that I'm quickly to pick up the phone because I have a lot of respect for you guys, for everything that you've instilled in me. So I really appreciate you guys for that. So, and I encourage, pick up the phone. I tell my friends that, and I'm asking you guys, pick up the phone to keep sharing what you've been sharing with me with others my age bracket. So.
And we're proud of you too.
Well, thank you. I'd be remiss if I didn't share. You all know, while he's not here, late great Jim Gilliam Sr. I'm really appreciative of all his teachings as well. One of his favorite things is tell me I'll hear, show me I'll listen, involve me I'll understand. And ironically, I don't know if you remember Ted, but my grandfather, David Webb, he used to drive for Congo, and he would share with me stories about you and driving you and James Gilliam Sr. around when he was younger. So, I really appreciate you gentlemen for everything that you guys have done for me and keep teaching me. And, I'm very big on time. I'm very big on, my grandfather taught me when you're early, you're on time. When you're on time, you're late. So if you could I'm gonna have an Oprah moment. Look under your seats. Got a gift for you.
Is there keys to a car?
I don't know if I've at DETV. I don't know if we've gotten there yet. But if I haven't got a surprise, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. But no. Lean in. Lean down. Go ahead and grab those gifts, and that is for you from me.
All right.
Go ahead and open them.
Damn, a watch.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You gotta wear it now.
Yeah. So you were just saying you needed one, right?
Wear one.
Now you gotta wear one. Yeah. There you go. But I really appreciate you guys. I really do.
Yeah.
So happy Father's Day to you, gentlemen.
Is this Rolex?
Listen, I ain't got like
Or
that.
is this
Ted.
Rover?
That's Rolex. No, I'm just kidding. But I really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. Happy Father's Day to you guys.